For me, I think it was a privilege to have the opportunity to reflect on a letter that has been written by this great saint, Pope John Paul II. And even though it happened in 1994, going through the whole document, it looks as if it's still so current, so applicable to what is happening today. So I'm going to screen share, and I hope as we go through the letter, just like it speaks to me, spoke to me as if he is still alive talking to us. So that I hope the same will happen to each of us as we listen to the reflection and the summary of the letter. So I'm going to screen share. Okay, I hope you can see my screen.
Yes, sister.
Yes, we can.
All right, so this letter was written by Saint Pope John Paul II in the year of family, which was 1994. And the first question I asked, sorry, part of my screen is covered by this thing. Let me see how I can move it. Something is called, okay, I wish it to come to the bottom.
But sister, the way it is, I think it's okay. We are seeing everything.
No, it was covering my screen. I can, I can see better now. So, why was the year of the family declared? The first thing that touched me was the fact that this move was first made by United Nations to have the 1994 as the year for family. And somehow the church felt called, it wasn't actually the church that made the first move, United Nations. And somehow the church felt that God was calling them to key in with United Nations to talk about the families. And the year of family, why the church keyed in was a kind of pastoral outreach for family, providing the necessary care, the support, and whatever the family might be needing to meet the challenges of life. As you go through the documents, you will find that the Pope keeps repeating the truth and love it so many times. Last night, when we had mass for our patients here, and the priest who said the mass somehow said a little bit more about Pope St. John Paul, that the mother died quite early in life and the senior brother was a doctor. But you can see that he was so passionate about family, speaking with conviction. And for him, family is the most important part of our lives as human beings. And we see that Christ lived and grew up with his parents in Nazareth. He grew up in a family like the rest of us. He didn't fall from the tree, and God made that deliberately. Oh, sorry, I have a problem moving to the next slide. Mm. Sorry, I don't know why it's not going to the next slide. Just there. Sorry, I have a bit of challenge. I'm coming.
It has moved though.
I want to take it out. Yeah, okay. Okay, it's too small now, huh?
Go to slideshow.
Okay. Right, I hope. Okay.
Yeah, sister, whenever you want to move to the next slide, you minimize as you just did now.
Okay.
And
Okay, continue. So family existed from the beginning of creation. As you see, family God created the world with love. And when he had finished everything, he created us in his own image and likeness, as we see in Genesis chapter 2, verse 27. This year was like an awakening to the church. The church, Holy Mother, the church, has always been showing love and concern to her people, but this year was like an awakening of showing of that love and concern. And as again we reflect on this document, we see that the Holy Father drew from the wisdom of a lot of documents. This includes Familiaris Consortium, Vatican II, Synod of Bishops on Family, Humanae Vitae, and of course the Catechism of the Catholic Church. In fact, as you go through the letter, you will actually think as if the Pope was conducting a marriage course and drawing up a kind of a synthesis of everything that at least I have learned so far from this course. And the Pope looks at prayer as the most important part of that year. In his letter, the pontiff expresses that he's not just speaking of family in the abstract sense, but that he's talking to every family in every part of the world. In talking about the love in family, he says that when family meet, it gives us the strength to say, Our Father, that the word Our Father unites us together as family. It talks about prayer for the family, prayer with the family. For him, prayer increases the strength and spirituality of the family. Prayer also helps family to partake in God's strength. The pontiff highlights the importance of prayer for all, both living and dead. Our prayer in remembrance of God and God's prayer in remembrance of us. Prayer for all generations. And again, he moves then to the marriage rite. During the marriage rite, the priest prays to God to pour out upon the spouses the grace of the Holy Spirit. Every individual is born and raised in the family for the purpose of doing good. And for him, this good is already written in our hearts. And the image he's using to portray the family is the domestic church, which is intertwined with the family. The Pope in this document highlights what is happening in the modern world, that sometimes it contradicts what God has planned for us, which is the spirit of truth and love. And when it contradicts, sometimes it can be like enslavement. It is within this background that the modern challenges we are facing. And with this, the church felt, oh, this was the right time to really talk about the family. Then he moves into, again, God created the world in love, the story of creation again. The world is marked with God's fatherhood from its inception. And we see that in Genesis chapter 1, verse 26. Let us make man in our own image and likeness. So the catechism will not be presented separately as we reflect on the Pope's letter. Wherever is relevant, we are going to refer to the catechism. As in this case, we see that in the Catechism of the Catholic Church 1602. Every other thing was created on its own, but man was created in God's image. And again, he puts here, male and female, he created them in verse 27. There was no transgender. For a marriage to be valid, the spouses have to be male and female. Father talked to us about this, one of the essential elements of marriage. And again, moving on, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth and subdue it. Marriage is for the good of the spouse and for procreation. Catechism of the Catholic Church 1601. Again, the Pope highlighted that human fatherhood and motherhood, while being a biological issue, that it goes beyond that, because human beings, we are created in the likeness of God, which is the basis of family as a community of human life, as a community of persons united in love. Communio personarum. Father, I hope I'm pronouncing it right. So we want to look at what the Pope brought up again in the letter, the concept of communion and community as it relates to marriage. They are very two closely related concepts. When we talk of communion, it has to do with personal relationship, especially in the context of family, I and thou, whereas community moves towards society. The family as a community of persons is thus the first human society, and it comes into being whenever there is a conjugal covenant of marriage. The communion of spouses brings about community of family. Again, we see that in Catechism of the Catholic Church 1603 talks about intimate communion of life and love. The relationship between the mother and the child in the womb is also another aspect of communion, because the minute you disconnect the child from the umbilical cord, it's either if it's due to come out, that child will come out alive. But if that child is disconnected before the child is due to born, the child will spontaneously come out. So we can see how closely related and a close union of mother and the child in the womb. The child born should consolidate that covenant which exists between the husband and wife, enriching and deepening the conjugal union of the father and mother. Therefore, we can say that fatherhood and motherhood are in themselves a proof of the love between husband and wife. The Pope talks about the marital covenant. The family has always been considered as the first and basic expression of man's social nature. Family is a communion of persons whose way of living is in communion with the Creator. We are so much linked to our Creator. Separated from that, we cannot be alive. And the Pope then talks about the Second Vatican Council, which shows family originates in a marital communion, which is described as a covenant. We've been talking so much about marriage as a covenant. The unity of the two. The spouses give themselves to each other and they accept each other. Again, we see that in Catechism of the Catholic Church 1621. By so doing, they are no longer two but one. A man leaves his father and mother and cleave to the wife. Because they are one flesh, they have cleaved to each other. We talk of the insolubility of marriage, which is emphasized through action. You see that again in Catechism of the Catholic Church 1640. And the Pope says that it has to be free, that covenant. The Pontiff highlights here that the spouses have to consciously make a free choice, which makes it a valid marriage. Again, the Second Vatican Council also refers to the image and likeness of God. It's not just on the physical level, like you say oh, this person resembles another person, but it goes deeper than that if you are talking of a covenant. A certain similarity between union of the divine persons and the union of God's children in truth and love. We are repeatedly going to hear this word the Pope is saying, truth and love. It's almost like a mantra through the whole letter. Again, he talks about the capacity to live in truth and love during the rite of the marriage. The spouses are asked, would you accept children lovingly from God and bring them up according to the law of Christ and his church? And again, the question, when this question is asked, the bride and the groom, of course, they say yes. They are called to become parents, to cooperate with the Creator in giving life, cooperating with God to call new human being into existence. That's a procreation, contributing to the transmission of that divine image and likeness. Our next part now, we are talking of the genealogy. As we talk about procreation, we are talking also about genealogy. I used to find that part of the gospel talking about Jesus's genealogy very boring till, recently when we started this course, and you can really say when you are talking of an individual person, you're talking of the generations. Through the communion of persons which occurs in marriage, a man and a woman begins a family. And the Pope highlights that every individual has a background whose genealogy can be traced, the genealogy of the person. It shows that the person is not an object, but a living person. Again, it brings the element of St. Paul, the motherhood and the fatherhood, as pointed out by St. Paul. The fact that every motherhood and fatherhood comes from heaven, Ephesians 3:14. When a person is born through conjugal union, this person is created in the image and likeness of God. The divine aspect comes in, and not just the biological aspect of the genealogy. Both in conception and the birth of the person, he is born in truth and love of the divine. Parents ought to know and to realize that when they are planning for conception, God will this child for his own sake. Every child that is born, parents are thinking of them, and God is also thinking of that child. It is not our will, but God's will. And here St. Augustine says, our own will can contradict God's will. Hence, St. Augustine says, our heart is restless until it rests on God. In children, husband and wife see the crowning of their love. Parents, therefore, must want the children in the same way as the Creator wants them for himself. God wants every human being to be part of his life. When we look at this from this point, then the genealogy of the person is united with the eternity. That's what the Pope is highlighting. And we see that in the Catechism of the Catholic Church 1652. The common good of the family and marriage. As we will know from what we have been doing in the course, marriage is for the common good and for procreation and for education of the children. In marriage, the spouses give their consent to each other in the solemn promise, confirming the truth before God. I take you to be my wife, to be my husband in sickness and health. Again, that is highlighted in the Catechism of the Catholic Church 1639. The consent defines the common good of both spouses and the children and that of the entire family. As baptized Catholics, the spouses are the ministers of the sacrament of matrimony in the church. And then we see that St. Paul is calling this a great mystery, Ephesians 5:32. The Pope again brings us back to the fact that the year of family is a special year on the part of families, ought to be to renew and to deepen each other's awareness of this truth and the mystery we are talking about. The common good demands to be created and shared. And when this is done, it doesn't just stop there. It will diffuse itself into the entire family, he mentions. The sincere gift of self. The Council says that man cannot fully find self except through sincere gift of self. Sincere gift of self. And that means love means giving and receiving, he highlights. Love means thinking of others. You cannot say that you love if you are only thinking of yourself. We can see that in the daily life. You can't say, yes, I love, but I'm just thinking of myself. I'm cooking for myself. When we think of the family, the mother doesn't just cook for herself, she cooks for the whole family. And that's an element of love. Hence, the element of sincere gift of self is present where there is genuine love. The reciprocal love from the spouse reveals the type of love they have for one another. In their marital consents, cited in Catechism of the Catholic Church 1626, the bride and the groom call each other by name. I do take you, and I promise to be true to you for all the days of my life, without the mutual giving of self. Again, here the Pope is highlighting the mutual giving of self in matrimony. Marriage will be empty or invalid without this. Just as the conjugal love is for the common good of the spouses. Again, the birth of a new child, which is a big gift, is for the common good of the entire family. And here he highlights the birth of a child that is like the Paschal sign. And Jesus compares this like when a woman is in labor. He's comparing that with the passion. And the minute the woman delivers, he forgets about all the pain. And the joy that comes with the delivery is like the resurrection. And the resurrection signifies the fullness of life, which John talks about in chapter 10, verse 10. During the rite of marriage, the priest prays for the spouses to receive this gift and to be poured into their hearts. So our next section now, we are looking at responsible fatherhood and motherhood. So if we want to read this further, I would encourage us, this part of it, responsible fatherhood and motherhood, for us to take a look also at the humane vitae, the responsible parenthood that is being discussed with the humane vitae as well. The letter to the families by Pope St. John Paul II highlights two things in this section: civilization of love, responsible fatherhood, and motherhood. In this section, we are going to hear a little bit more about responsible fatherhood and motherhood. Gardner Expert talks about promoting the dignity of marriage and family. In particular, responsible fatherhood and motherhood directly concern the moment in which a man and a woman are uniting themselves as one flesh to become parents. This is a moment of special value, and both their interpersonal relationship and for the service to bring about life. They become parents, father and mother, by communicating life to a new human being. The two dimensions of conjugal union, the unitive and the procreation, cannot be done artificially, separating without damaging the deepest truth of the conjugal act itself. Many times people are asking, when we do training, and they'll be saying, hey, why is the church condemning, what do you call it? Why is the church condemning IVF? Sure. So this part can really show us what God is planning for us. What God is planning for us is not just to go and bring in a child in an artificial manner, but showing the two dimensions, the unitive and the procreation aspect. The Second Vatican states that all married life is a gift, but this becomes most evident when the spouses, in giving themselves to each other, bring about the encounter which makes them one flesh. They become one flesh, and through that, they bring in a child. So we've been focusing on the conjugal union as a way of husband and wife the child. Sorry, I need to move this a bit. The child, the husband and wife have a special responsibility. What the Pope is highlighting here, that maybe sometimes when the spouses didn't plan for a child and maybe they take in, and then you hear the father say words like, I don't know about that pregnancy, I don't accept it. He is saying that, people who have expressed themselves in love should not talk like that. That responsible parenthood means accepting responsibility for their action and be ready to bring up that child in a responsible manner. The Holy Father also draws our attention to the fact that the aim of conjugal relationship is not just to have children, but rather mutual communion of love and life. He talks about the two civilizations. Motherhood and fatherhood is an integral part of civilization of love. Family is also what Pope John Paul II called civilization of love. In Humane Vitae, this is looked at as married love instead of the word civilization of love. The word civilization comes from civics, which means citizen, and it emphasizes the civic or political dimension of every individual. It belongs to the human culture, hence it can be seen as the humanization of the world. Civilization of love originates in the revelation of God who is love, as John writes in 1 John chapter 4, verse 8, and in chapter 16. This civilization is intimately linked to love poured into our hearts through the Holy Spirit. And that love doesn't just stay there. The love is supposed to grow when we cultivate and take care of it. Family depends on civilization of love. There can be no true love without awareness of the presence of God, the Pope highlights. With true love, the family can grow. Christ is needed at the center of the family so that we can continue to grow. As we have civilization of love, we also have anti-civilization of love. Let's see what he's talking about. When we move outside what God wants of us, then we are moving from the splendor of truth, which is an encyclical. It means, utilitarianism is the civilization of product. And what the Pope is highlighting here, when we go into just looking at the production or what benefits we can get from that, the Pope's saying that when we look at people, that means you are looking at them as objects. You look at children and they are becoming like a hindrance to the parent. And you're looking at the family is as an obstruction. The same goes for civilization of technology. They are thinking of safe sex. Example of what is happening, being introduced into the school curriculum for the young people. They want the young people to start from a very tender age, to talk about sex, to introduce them to the subject of sex when they are not mature enough. And that is happening in Europe, it's happening in America, but they are also trying to buy our own government so that they can, the children in Africa can do the same. And the Pope is saying that this type of attitude is looking at people as objects and how to use them. It's not civilization of love. For him, civilization of love brings joy for the fact that a man has come into the world, and consequently spouses have become parents. The civilization of love also means rejoicing in the right. Anything contrary to this destroys family. So, how can family foster love? At this point, before we go into what St. Paul is saying, I hope we are all awake. I'm going to take this out for us to talk a bit. How can family foster love? Please, I would like us to unmute ourselves and maybe we can share a little bit here. How can family foster love in the light of what the Pope has been saying to us now. So I'm going to stop. We are now in slide 19. I'm going to stop screen sharing. Can we talk a bit? How can family foster love? If we can share a little bit, how can we foster love in the light of what the Pope has told us so far? How can family foster love? Hello? Hello?
Hi,
Hello,
sister.
sister. Sister, good evening.
How can family foster love? This
Can I
civilization
say
of
something,
love.
sister?
Yes?
Can I say something?
Yes, please.
Good evening, sister. Good evening, brothers and sisters.
Good evening.
In my opinion, the family can foster love by establishing a relationship with one another through prayers and through the celebration of one another, recognizing maybe special days like birthdays, anything that can bring the family together to share love in joy and in happiness.
Okay. Thank you very much. Anybody else?
Yeah, good evening, sister.
Good evening.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. I think there was one statement that stood up for me in the discussion, and that is there can be no true love without the awareness of God. So to be able to foster love, every family has to steep their children in the knowledge of God. That's number one. Then secondly, the families have to draw out what love really means. Because that word love, we throw it around every day. I love you, I love you. But what does love really mean? And we have to connect it to the love of Christ. Number one, love is about forgiveness. Love is about mercy. Love is about humility. I know there are families where the wife earns more than the husband. For some, this material power or financial power is the love in the family. It affects the love because the woman now starts disrespecting the husband, and the children are watching. I work in a school and I hear things from children. My mommy said this, my daddy said this because my mom is paying this. And so for families to live in love, we have to really explain to our children from the onset. Not just explain, we have to live it out. We have to show forgiveness and really show it for the children in the family to understand that this is forgiveness. We have to make prayer a key. The mother. In many homes, it's the mothers that lead the prayer, do other things. The fathers should be, in fact, the pastors of their families, because we're told that the home is the church. There's that terminology.
The domestic church.
Domestic
Domestic
church.
Yes,
church.
it's the domestic church. So the fathers, because there's a way for children to see their fathers kneel down and bow to a superior power. It means a lot for us to pray and lead the churches in their homes. And then, like I mentioned, love, mercy, kindness, not using harsh words in the home. It's a whole lot of things. Let me stop there so that others can contribute. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Eugenia. Thank you.
Sister, sister, I want to say something too.
Okay.
Yes, Teniola speaking. For family to foster love, there must be supportive communication. That is open communication. They have to practice active listening. The way they express their emotion, they need to be honest. They also need to look for a way to spend quality time together. Which brings me to the fact that if family keep aside quality time for each other, they could also set up a family catechesis where they keep growing in the love and unity, the Trinitarian love. There should be, if if as a wife, as a husband, I have support, I should have that supportive attitude for my spouse and encouragement. And in every little thing that is being done, either from the man, the head, the wife, or the children, they should learn to show appreciation, and they should be present for each other always. And if family tries to do this, definitely there will be love, and humility, forgiveness, mercy my sister spoke about will surely come in. Thank you, sister.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Sister, I want to say something.
Okay.
Good evening, all.
Good evening.
Chioma. Yes. Now, when we're talking of love, how family can foster love. Now, we look at the attribute of God, who is love himself. God is love. How does God manifest his love to us? He is sacrificial. Jesus sacrificed himself for us. For a family that wants to foster love, they must sacrifice to each other. There must be a spirit of patience. If there is no patience in the family, you see, husband and wife will be quarreling, children will also learn from the parents, and you see them manifesting it elsewhere. Wherever they are, they become bullies because there is no patience in the house. Any small thing they react. Then they should show love through dialogue. It's not everything that people will come and settle husband and wife in the family. Yes, little. Yes, little. Sister, are you talking? Okay. I said
Sorry.
little.
Continue.
Hello.
Continue.
Okay.
Continue.
Yes, say dialogue between husband and wife is very, very important. And when children see how parents, relate, love themselves, tolerate each other, tolerance is very important also. When they tolerate themselves, and also they are givers. They not only to themselves, not only to the children see them giving others, showing that love. You see, they will now pick from whatever the parents are doing, and you see the children doing it, transferring it from the home to other people. So for the home to foster love, they say charity begins at home. Yes, you start from your home, and when it grows from the domestic church, it will also go to the community where the children live, and the entire people will know that this family is showing that love that is God himself. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. So I want to appreciate all those who have contributed to how we can show love in the family. So let us continue to hear more on what the Pope is telling us about love. He has started, but we still have a few more slides, and then in the end we can join all of them together. So I'm going to screen share again. Okay, so we were on slide 19. So the Pope draws our attention to the characteristics of love as mentioned by St. Paul in 1 Corinthians. I think we have nicely summarized it well, how to be kind to each other, how to communicate, and then St. Paul is talking about love is patient, love is kind. I would like us on our own to continue to read what St. Paul is saying. Love endures all things. Love is good when it creates the good of the persons and the community. And the Pope highlights that true love is demanding. It's not easy. You know, one of us said a minute ago, you have to sacrifice something. You have to let go. You have to forgive. If not, it's not love. The dangers faced by love, as he sees it, is selfishness. Selfishness by individual, selfishness in the family. If there is no sharing, if there is no love, as one of us says, the children can learn from that. And that can equally expand to the society where we are, and it can expand to the national level. Love requires freedom in truth. True freedom needs discipline that can cultivate love. This is called personalism. Personalism, that is the truth, the love that is in truth, and there is the spirit of freedom that is in truth with discipline. While freedom of doing what you like he calls it individualism. That does not promote true love. That is freedom without responsibility. So the Pope is talking about freedom with responsibility. That's part of the responsible parenthood, responsible motherhood and fatherhood. And he draws our attention here that prayer is important to families, especially those who are threatened. Sorry, I want to screen share.
Can you put in this slideshow?
Yes, I'm going there now. Sorry. Okay. What's wrong there? Okay. Okay, so our next part, still on responsible motherhood and fatherhood that he talks about, is on honor your father and mother. That's all part of the responsible parenthood or responsible motherhood and fatherhood. And what does he say? Honor means to acknowledge. When we talk of honor, we should be guided by the firm acknowledgement of persons, whether it's a father and mother, then to all members. We are talking about mutual honor for one another in the family, mutual respect. The family is a community, particularly of intense personal relationship. As somebody says a minute ago, the spouses, if they respect each other, then the children will automatically learn from that. But if there is fighting in the family, the child will equally learn about that fighting, and then the next child outside will be bullied. And where is that child learning that from? It's learning it from the family. It is a community which must be safeguarded in a special way. And God cannot find a better word to safeguard the family than to use the word honor. It doesn't mean just, you see, it's called honor father and mother, but we are talking of, honoring your children. You are not bowing down for them, but you are giving them the respect that is accorded to them, that is suitable for them at that age. Because if you don't show them, they equally cannot know what you are talking about. And the next section now talks about education. Again, all the time we need to go back. Marriage is for the good of the spouses, is for procreation and education of the children. So the Pope is bringing that here. And when we are talking of education, this idea of honoring your father and mother is very much rooted in education. As one of us shares a minute ago, you educate the formation. In fact, if you like, you can use the word formation, forming the character of the children. That is like educating them. And how do you educate them? First and foremost, they learn from what does the person educator, but you are also talking of people being who begets it in a spiritual sense. From this point of view, communication, again, one of us say, yes, there has to be good communication in the family, which not only creates a profound relationship between the educator and the one sharers in truth and love. That final goal to which we are talking of the education is still part of that procreation and education of the children. Now the question we are posing here is, when does this education start? Because sometimes you correct a small child and somebody will say, yeah, he's still a child. And then when does it start? According to Pope John Paul II, it begins right from conception. In the first few months of pregnancy, both the baby and the mother have mutual influence on one another. The father should accept the responsibility of supporting the mother throughout the pregnancy. So, I don't know how many men we have here. I would just like to hear from them. How do they support their wives during pregnancy, especially during the first few months of pregnancy? Can we hear from the men, please? Because here the Pope is specifically mentioning the father should accept the responsibility of supporting the mother throughout the pregnancy. Can we hear from the men, please?
Hello.
Yes, Mr. Anthony Atimati.
Yes, it's not actually during pregnancy alone that husbands should support their wives. Even during the normal daily activities and all that, husbands should be able to support their wives. And this support includes, one, assisting actually in also in domestic chores. Also helping in taking care of the children. So for example, maybe the children are going to school, so doing school run, taking children to school, helping the children also in their homework, and then when they also come home, one is able to, that's in union with the mother, with the wife, able to take care of and give some basic instructions and all that for the child. Okay, ensure that you engage in these activities, do your domestic chores at so time, start doing this. So enforcing the timetable, the common timetable for the family. So the first day at all times. But during pregnancy, that might take an extra effort, in the sense that after pregnancy, the one might not be those that she usually does. And so taking the woman, for example, for antenatal clinic, and then at times even going to market to buy some things when the woman is able to do that. So relieving her of some of those chores that she might not be able to do because of her state. So all ways that.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Not just only during the pregnancy. Thank you.
No, I agree with you. It's not just during pregnancy, but
Exactly. But sister,
I'm sure the women can speak,
okay,
especially the first trimester, how sick some of them can be, and they need some understanding because of the special time. And I think even for the Pope to be drawing attention to that, he must have been observing something from the mother also. So, yeah, there's a reason. We are not saying that the support at other times is not important, but maybe especially the first trimester. Eh, Thank you very much for your response. Can we hear from another person, please?
okay, sister, much as I agree with Prophet Timothy on certain things, I think I disagree on assisting my wife in taking the children to school or cooking or other things. Why I say so is that it's not only when she's pregnant that I do those things. I'm talking of myself, please. I do take my children. It depends on how we share responsibilities. I take my children. I take joy in taking my children and bringing them back from school, and equally doing some of the domestic, or especially washing plates. In fact, I can wash plates very well, much as I can eat as well. So what I'm saying is that there are certain ones that are not necessarily when the wife or is pregnant. Nevertheless, I agree when taking her to antenatal and staying with her. Well, to me, it's not assisting her. That's the responsibility you're supposed to do, because no other person should do that except you. So you have to do that. So generally, I would say that if there is anything that my wife does on her own that she could not do when she's pregnant, that responsibility falls back on me. Except those, if the children are grown up, they were able to handle. They can handle it safely very well without any problem. Then I can call up my children to do that if they are grown up enough to handle such responsibility. But if not, those things that she does that she could not do when she's pregnant, it's a responsibility on me.
Okay.
Robert, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the two interventions. So we continue to hear what the Holy Father is saying, that education then is before all is a reciprocal offering on the part of both parents. Together, they communicate their own mature humanity to the newborn child, who gives them in turn the newness and freshness of humanity. So we can see that, like we are saying, when does education start? It starts from the womb, and the openness, the reciprocal offering is not just supporting the child, but there's a freshness of love that the new child brings into the family. And God's plan for education, through Christ, all education within the family and outside of it becomes part of God's teaching plan and learning for one another, which is addressed to individuals and families. And this culminates in the Paschal mystery of the Lord's death and resurrection. The heart of our redemption is the starting point of every process of Christian education, which is likewise always an education to a full humanity. So here, Pope draws attention, parents are the first and most important educators of their own children. And they also possess a fundamental competence in this area. They are educators because they are parents. Sometimes I hear parents talking, I will send my child to that school. Of course, good school is very good for the children. But we are not just sending that child to go and learn certain, because the first learning here the Pope is highlighting is from the family. If they miss out on the fundamental learning from the family, you can send them to Oxford University. They will not learn anything. What parents offer their children in education is supplemented by the formal education. Of course, when they go for formal education, they learn more and more of the academic. They, of course, especially maybe Catholic schools, will put in a lot to teach children. It's not just the academic. In Catholic schools, they go extra mile to teach children. But the point here is that if parents have not formed their children properly, not taught them the basic things that they should be taught in the family, which the Pope is highlighting in this document, when we send them to wherever we think they would learn, if they miss out on the basic part, it may not be possible for them to really learn fully what we are talking about. Family and society. What does a family as an institution expect from the society? The Pope here says recognition of its identity as a family, acceptance of the family status in the society, and that means accepting the proper identity of marriage and family, recognizing that marriage is a covenant where the man and the woman establish their covenant for their whole life. Marriage that is for the good of the spouses, open to procreation and the education of the children. Other forms of marriage cannot be accepted as valid marriage. Now we are seeing a lot of this, a man wanting to marry the man, woman wanting to marry the man. So, like, maybe when the Pope wrote this so many years ago, maybe it wasn't so pronounced, but now people are coming out publicly, oh, this is the person I want to marry. And yet the same man marrying a man wants to adopt a child. So family as sovereignty has family rights. And in 1983, the Holy See published the Charter of Family Rights. So we are just going to highlight some of it here. Right of parent to responsible procreation and education of the children. Rights to property, especially family property, and right to work. The Charter of the Rights of the Family on the basis of moral principles mentioned consolidates the existence of the institution of the family in social and judicial order of the greater society. So we see here the identity of family is shaped by the nation. Family is not in isolation. Family is rooted in a culture. Everything that happens around the family, it forms the shape of the family. The state also have a responsibility to play by creating a good infrastructure for where the children can receive education. And here the Pope knows that unemployment is one of the biggest threats to families, because if there is no employment, how can the father or the mother provide for the children? It will push them to extreme poverty. And again, the Pope is highlighting here that women can be overburdened by domestic work. And sometimes it's like domestic, oh, she doesn't work, she stays at home. I think the Pope is drawing special attention to this, that sitting with the children the whole day in the house doing the domestic work at times can be even bigger than going outside to take up office work. And the Pope says that at least women should be recognized with this in their family. There's a strong link between good family and the state of the nation. The bridegroom is with you. Let's see what the Pope is talking about here. This scene is depicted through the wedding feast in Cana. This indicates the fulfillment of his own person of the image of God, the bridegroom, which reveals fully the mystery of God, who is love. By describing himself as bridegroom, Jesus revealed the profound truth of spousal love. By using the miracle of the wedding feast at Cana, sorry, there's a mistake there, Jesus shows that family is part of God's revelation and the history of salvation. This love is profound. This love is tender. As somebody says, we have to forgive. This love forgives. The scene in Cana heralds the divine truth about marriage. By changing water to wine, Jesus shows that Christ is there even at the point of crisis in our marriage. Because marriage is true covenant sealed in the blood of Christ. The pontiff at this point says, spouses and families, remember the price you have been bought. He adds that marriage is an unusual vocation which is embraced by great majority. And the great mystery he talks about, the bodies of husband and wives are the dwelling place of the Holy Spirit, because the transmission of divine life is recaptured in the event of baptism. Again, he draws our attention in the letter back to what St. Paul is saying. Husbands, love your wives. Even so, husbands should love their wife as their own body. And St. Paul continues to say, be subject to one another out of reverence for Christ. The point of reference of spousal love is the great mystery of the one flesh sealed in the blood. And again, the Pope is talking in this part of this slide, is talking about the philosophers trying to separate the spirit from the body. And with this concept, people are experimenting with embryo of Christ's incarnation. The Pope says that the family is destroyed once there is no possibility of looking at the spouse with the approach of a relationship, with the approach of the mystery, the great mystery that he's talking about the mother of fairest love, Our Lady as the mother and virgin. Annunciation owns that title, the fairest